Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Surviving Life's Pickles. It is our next episode, and we are so happy that you have joined us and taken this time out of your busy day today to hang out with us, to hear our amazing guest stories, and to listen to the messages that we wanted to share with the community and everybody tuning in. I'm Scott Martin, your host. Many of you should know that by now. I have my lovely wife, Hillary, as co host today, hanging out.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm almost like this little kid on Christmas right now because we have waited to record this episode since we started because our guest today is Emilee Krupa of Koru Wellness.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
And we're going to kind of roll into this and start with our gratitude like we usually do. Today, we got a little bit of a twist. We're going to talk about somebody we're grateful for and why. And really, that comes from having Emilee here today. So, literally, we would not be sitting in this room or doing anything that we've been doing for last year if we were never introduced to Emilee. She has been this amazing guide, amazing friend, therapist, shoulder to lean on, confident. She was the one that really showed me the way, along with the rest of her people on her team, about life is better and we can work through it. And I am just so overwhelmed that we get to sit here and talk about what she does and why she does it, because she is a big part of the reason of why we do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I'm just overwhelmed, and I have all these emotions going on, but it's weird. Every morning I have this emotional moment, and I just have all these tears roll out for about 5 minutes every morning, and I just feel connected to everything going on. So I've kind of already cried it all out this morning.
There's still time, Scott.
There's still time, and it is very possible. So I'm going to roll it to Hillary. Let her go.
All right. Well, I mean, I am so utterly grateful to you, Emilee, for sure, because you helped save my husband. You've helped save my sanity in multiple different occasions. But I'm also grateful for you, Scott. I'm grateful for all the things, this crazy ride that we're on, and just all the hard work that you've done this past year. And I am just so proud of you and grateful for you.
It's coming.
It's coming. I'm going to make him cry.
Oh, all right, Em.
Oh, man. I mean, I have so many people in my life to be grateful for, right? I'm grateful for people like you because I think you guys kind of embody a little bit the process of therapy, right? I think so many of us have this belief or this idea that, like, I go to therapy, my therapist tells me what to do, and then I'm better and it's all good and we move forward. And so when I have folks come in that are like, okay, like fix me now, tell me what to do, I'm always like, oh, buddy, like
Yeah.
we gotta unpack some of this stuff. And so I just appreciate so much how you guys, I was catching up on some of your episodes yesterday to just kind of like, how do we go with this flow and just to kind of help prepare myself to be here today. And I'm just so grateful for the way that you guys talk about doing therapy. It's not like, well, Emilee told me to do this thing and I did it and now I feel better. It's like, well, Emilee said this thing and then I went home and I thought about it and I read this book and I contemplated, and like you have your whole like Zen den, this place that you get to spend time on yourself. And it really is like you're doing the work. I'm not doing anything. Like, spoiler alert, right? Your therapist is literally just there to help process, to help engage you, to help bring curiosity, to help you come to your own, answers and conclusions. And so I just appreciate so much. Sometimes I listen to podcasts about therapy or therapists, and I'm just like, oh, Lord, people are going to come to me and they're not going to like me for therapy because I am not going to tell you what to do. So I'm so grateful, for people like you and how you talk about it. I'm grateful for my team at Koru. The team is growing a ton and I love it. And there are times when, during the holidays, I took more time off than I normally would. And I traveled a little bit with my family. And I was able to do that because the team is so solid at Koru. They're helping us grow. And that is so exciting. I'm so grateful for my husband and all of his support in growing Koru. He does not travel a lot for work, but recently he has been traveling more. And anytime he was recently just in Canada for a week, and anytime he leaves, especially for prolonged periods like a week, I'm like, oh Lord, I am grateful for you and all this stuff.
Oh,
Just the little things like he packs my girls' lunches every day, and he helps do breakfast in the morning, and he does so much just around the house logistically to keeping our life running that I'm so grateful for him and all of his support and, him being around. So
amazing.
tons to be
Yeah.
grateful for. I think
Yeah.
so
Well,
much.
and your guys' dynamics changed quite a bit because he wasn't involved originally as much as he is now,
Yeah,
right?
with Koru,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now
Mhm.
he's really kind of stepping in and helping.
He is where he can. He also has like 3 other
Right.
jobs. He also has his own business.
Yeah.
He has a full-time job. He has a part-time, like he does so, so much. I have no idea how he does it. I do one thing, I do Koru, and that sometimes is a lot for me. But yeah, he does so much and he's still able to jump in and support and help, help me figure out how to send all my employees W-2s and like do my profit and loss statement and like all these dumb things that I don't wanna do that I have to do that he just can do so easily,
Yeah.
and so, yeah.
That's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really why we're here today is to talk about Emily, why she does what she does, and Koru and all the things they do. And as we get into this, I just wanted to run down, and if I miss anything, tell me.
Mhm,
So Koru started, you guys started with just ketamine therapy.
mhm.
And I was lucky enough to be part of that very, very first group,
Yes, uh-huh.
which I still am so thankful to be part of that very first group.
Mhm.
But they don't just do ketamine therapy. It is where they thrive and they're extremely good. But like Emily said, they've expanded
Yeah.
and now they offer. So, I mean, ketamine therapy, talk therapy, group ketamine therapy. You do functional medicine now
Yeah.
with your new nurse practitioner.
Yes, mhm,
You have IV nutrition and peptide therapy,
mhm,
weight management and GLP,
mhm.
and foot zoning.
Yeah.
And
Foot zoning has been around for a little bit.
yeah,
That one's not new, but yeah.
but all of those things
Yes.
now make up this amazing wellness business that you guys have put together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Really, and I mean, that was kind of so to go back, right? Koru Wellness started in 2023. It was myself and a business partner who is a former mentor of mine. We subleased a space in his building. He had a fairly large space. And so we subleased a space. It was me and Brittany, my nurse practitioner who's still with me, who I love, who you know, of course. Um, and it was me and her for maybe a couple of months, and then there were a couple more therapists that would see, like, 1 client a week, or Mackenzie, who's also still with me, supported me with the groups, and Lincoln would do some groups and do some private clients, and so we just kinda started growing a little bit. Um, I'm the type of person that's like, I'm in the airplane and I'm jumping out and I'll figure out how to I'll do this parachute thing like on the way. It's
Yeah.
fine. I'll figure it out. Chad always used to say, your cart is so far in front of your horse that your horse doesn't even know where the cart is anymore because I am such a like, let's go, let's do this. Like, let's help more people. Let's do more things. Let's make sure that we can, because I get so many clients that come in and ketamine therapy is absolutely wonderful. It is my specialty and I love it. And sometimes ketamine's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not what everybody needs. It's not going to be the best approach for some people. And so, wanting to expand what we were doing. So, in November of 2024, we signed our space in Lehigh. And that space is quite large. We have
Yeah.
8 offices. We have a group room. We have this auditorium that we can use. And so I signed that lease in November of 2024, knowing that I want to expand. I want to do more. I get these people so often that even will go through ketamine and it may not necessarily really change things for them. And when that happens, I'm like, we need to do some lab work. Like, where's your hormones at? Where's your vitamin D at? Where's your B12 at? Like, where are these other things? Yes, mental health feels emotional, and our emotions are so tied to our physical body as well.
Yeah.
Mental health is physical. Anybody that's ever experienced a panic attack ever is like, that crap is physical.
Yeah.
People go into the emergency room for panic attacks because it literally feels like you're dying,
Yeah.
like a heart attack. It is severe. And so wanting to bring in, this total mind body approach, being able to support people with labs, being able to support people if they do want to lose weight, being able to support people with nutrient therapy. If they're super low in vitamin D, which 85% of people in the state of Utah are, because we have these gray, it's actually kind of blue today, which is nice, but we've been having these super gray days.
Yeah.
We're all low in vitamin D, and vitamin D is an essential nutrient that we need in order for our hormones to process and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I've always known I wanted to expand it. And Brittany, who is my nurse practitioner who does the ketamine, who I love, who is brilliant, who I have been trying to get to work more for me for a year, is like, I don't want to. Brittany likes crisis.
Yes.
She's working in acute care, she's working in the emergency room, she's working in the ICU. Like,
She likes the rush.
she likes the rush, and that girl does not do well with, like, if we have a gap between clients, she's like, what am I supposed
She's in there
to do?
pacing. I've seen her.
Yeah, because she just gets bored. So she's like, she has seen the transformation that people have gone through with ketamine. And so she stays with me because she loves me. And because she really likes how that really helps people with their mental health. But she's never wanted to do more than that. She won't do more than that. And so I did find a nurse practitioner a few months ago whom I love, who really wants to focus on functional medicine. She is an NP, but she's going through an additional program to be trained in functional medicine to get more experience and exposure and training in that, on how we can treat mental health with a functional medicine lens. Let's get to the root cause of mental health. Sometimes it is you went through a crazy trauma and you need to process that trauma, whether that be EMDR or that be ketamine or whatever it might be. Sometimes I do get clients that are like, I am so depressed I cannot get out of bed, but I have a great job. I have great family. I most of the time exercise every day. I hate it. I don't enjoy it, but I drag my butt out of bed and I go exercise, and I still feel so depressed.
Yeah.
And I feel really stuck with those people in therapy because I'm like, I mean, we can talk this through for sure, but what if there's something else physically
going?
Well, and I can relate to that because after everything we went through, went back to my doctor, we ran some tests and everything, and just he's like, "We need to keep your testosterone, your hormone levels up higher." He's like, "You're really low." And so now that we've got that balanced out, and I think Hillary even sees it, the weeks possibly where I forget to take my medicine or whatever, I kind of have this little bit of dip. And then the weeks I do, I'm just here. And so there's a huge correlation with all of that. And I think that rounds right into your personal story and so many of the things that you've gone through. Is that, I mean, and well, let's have you tell everybody your story, but is that kind of the reason that you're really leaning towards going this way, is because all of those things helped you?
Yeah, I mean, like most therapists and most humans that get into the helping profession, I went through something really hard and then wanted, my story to be able to help other people. Um, I think a lot of people, because I've been on Frankie and Jess a couple of times, and I think uh, people are aware of my cancer story, and I can kind of tell more of that too. But I think one that I have not shared on any other, podcast necessarily, or even I recently did a little magazine article and I didn't really share it in there either, because it's not, yes, the Koru story relates a lot to my cancer journey, but really why I got into being a therapist was when I was 16. I grew up in a super small town, Delta, who Frankie always makes fun of.
Yeah.
Because Chrissy Teigen is not from Delta. Okay, let's make it straight,
Yeah.
Frankie. I grew up in a really small town, 3,000-ish people,
Mhm.
and I went through this really traumatic car accident when I was 16 years old. I was driving the car. I had three other friends in my car, and my one of my friends who was in the front seat was killed.
Huh.
And I was pretty messed up. I was in the hospital for 6 months. I broke my back, my pelvis, my
Mm.
sternum, my femur. Tons of just a crazy, crazy experience.
Yeah.
And that was a huge catalyst in my own life. Obviously, I was 16 at the time, and so I had no idea what mental health was, struggling with mental health, like just none of that had ever crossed my mind
Mhm.
until after this experience, until after going through this car accident, losing my friend, being the driver of the car that lost my friend, and then also having all of these physical injuries that I'm trying to
Recover.
heal from and
Yeah.
recover from. And I struggled for years. I struggled with survivor's guilt. I struggled with one of the families that was in the car actually ended up suing my parents for quite a bit of money.
Mm.
I struggled with drugs and alcohol for a while. I struggled with being in a pretty toxic relationship for a pretty long time. And something that I think truly, truly saved my life during this time was number one, finding a therapist that actually helped me. I went through a ton of therapy. I went
Yeah.
to residential treatment when I was 17 for 90 days, trying to figure my shit out. I went through many therapists. I went through voc rehab therapists. I went through like regular therapy. I just went through tons of therapists. And anybody that's been in therapy before, you kind of know sometimes it's like an interview process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotta
Like,
find the right fit.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Just because if you go to one therapist and you're like, that was not for me, it doesn't mean therapy is not for you. It just means
That
that person's not your vibe, and
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And so going through when I went to this residential treatment program, it was the summer of when I was 17. I was turning 18 in the fall. And I went to I think it was kind of like a last ditch effort of my parents. They're like, she's turning 18 soon.
Hmm.
She's insane. We cannot control her. She is making a lot of poor decisions. I was not in a good place.
Yeah.
Well, I have met your mom,
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
she is so proud of you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So proud of everything you've done. So it worked out.
It worked out, yeah, it all worked out, and I'm obviously, if you ask 17-year-old me if I was grateful to go to, rehab
Yeah.
this my 17-year-old, summer, no, I would not have appreciated that, but I did appreciate it because that is the place that I did find for the first time in my life, I found a therapist that was like, "Yeah, it makes sense that you feel like it's your fault.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense that you're feeling these ways." Like, that just listened and empathized and understood. I think I saw so many therapists, and this is not the fault of therapists. I think we want to help people and want to support people, but I met so many therapists that were like, "You're the identified patient. If you figured your shit out, then the rest of everything would be fine. And here is A, B, and C how you figure out your life."
Mhm.
And I'm like, that doesn't really work for me.
Yeah.
That's not really. You don't even know me. You've met me for 10 minutes, and you're going to tell me how to live my life.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, as a 17-year-old, it was more extreme, but even as a 36-year-old, I can't remember how old I am, 36? Even as a 36-year-old, I'm like, "You don't know me,
Yeah.
though. So how can you tell me how to live my life? You don't know necessarily what is gonna be best for me. I need you to be curious, I need you to be open-minded, and I need you to be not judgmental."
Mhm.
And she was the first therapist that did that for me.
Wow.
And so going through that experience, and I still obviously, it still took me a little bit of time to figure my stuff out. But that therapist was someone that I was like, I think I would want to do that
Mm.
for other
Yeah.
people.
It's kind of the catalyst for you.
Mhm.
Because you started not too long after that with helping people. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Because
Mhm.
weren't you 18, 19 when you got your first certification?
I was 20.
Okay,
Oh,
so you're right there.
that's
You're
Yep.
right behind it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Super
yeah.
young.
So my mom was my high school principal.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So that was a good time.
Yeah.
And so my car accident happened the summer after, or the summer before my sophomore year. And so I didn't start my sophomore year, and I was in the hospital for a long time. And so my mom being in education, I was doing like packets. I was doing doing online school before online school even like existed, really. It was very different. It was not like live, it was recorded and whatever. And I'm a like decently intelligent person, so I was banging out credits in the hospital because I was bored and didn't have anything else to do. And so I graduated high school early and thought I need a change. I can't be in this small town anymore where everybody knows me, everybody knows what I did, and people had different opinions about this experience. There were many people in my life that were very supportive and loving and kind. And there were also people that very much blamed me,
Yeah.
that it was my fault that this
Judged
had
you for
happened,
it.
that there was a lot of judgment, there was a lot of shame.
Mm.
There was, I drove like this little green, not green, it was silver, like Sunbird. I can't even remember who made it. Anyway, it was like it was this like little silver car, and everybody knew what car you drove when
Yeah.
you're in a small town.
Yeah.
And someone had carved into my car, murderer.
Oh,
And it was like, and so when I was going back before considering starting my senior year, I already had all my credits to graduate. And so I was like, I'm graduating early. I'm leaving.
mhm.
I am not going back to this school. I'm not going back to this environment. It is not a good place for me. So my parents were really supportive of that. My parents were really, they have their own stuff, of course, but my parents were really great
Hmm.
for all of the crap that I put them through and trying to figure out how to raise a teenage daughter that had been through this experience. They were pretty great for the most part, pretty supportive. And so they were like, sure, you can go, I'll move up here to Orem and go to UVU and start college. And so I did. And I did so I was 17, living in these apartments over here off of I-15, like living in, college dorms with all of these like older, at least 18-year-olds. I'm not
Yeah.
even 18 yet. And it was a good, it was a good experience. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do at the time. And so I did a year of school, just taking all the general fun eds that you got to take.
Yeah.
And then I met with my academic advisor. And she was really great. I had talked to her quite a bit. She knew my history. She kind of kept a close eye on me, I think, because I was so young when I was going to school. And she knew that I had struggled. She knew all these different things. And so she mentioned that UVU was getting a new program
Mm.
that was going to be the substance use disorder counseling program, that you could get a certificate and be a substance use disorder counselor.
Yeah.
And this was like it had just become UVU. It had
Uh-huh.
just become a university. It was a state college before that. And it was I was a licensed substance abuse counselor. You didn't even have to have a bachelor's degree at the time. Now you're required to have a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
But at the time you didn't. And so it was a year program, and then I did internships, and I was a substance abuse counselor.
Yeah.
And I was 20 years old. I couldn't even legally drink alcohol. And I worked for the prison down in Spanish Fork. I worked for a methadone clinic. I worked at a couple of different places before getting a job for a therapeutic boarding school that was working with teens. And that was most definitely, after I got licensed and was working in these different places, I was kind of like, what have I done? Like, what am I doing with my life? I am a child looking back, I'm just kind of blown away. And I was humble enough to know, like, I am a child trying to support and help these people stay sober that are, in their 50s coming out of prison with
Yeah.
like 10 felonies and can't get a job.
Mhm.
And so it was just a really eye opening, really meaningful experience at the time. And then I went and worked for a therapeutic boarding school. I went and worked in wilderness. I got some really cool experiences and knew the scope of practice with substance abuse counseling is really narrow. You can only do and for good reason, because you don't have hardly any training. So the scope of practice is narrow, which is good. And I knew when I was working for this wilderness therapy program, I worked with so many really cool marriage and family therapists. And so that kind of opened my eyes to, I want to go back to grad school for sure. I want to go be a real therapist, like
Mm.
go have this training and this licensure and be able to do more.
Yeah.
Doing just the substance abuse counseling was great, but I knew I wanted to do more. And so I did. So I went and got my master's degree and still continue to kind of learn from some really cool people. But it was kind of at the time, to how this connects to Koru happening now
Mhm.
is at the time, my substance abuse, or sorry, my academic advisor was like, we're getting this program, and I think it would be good for you because there's a lot of substance use in my family history. My brother struggled pretty significantly. My aunt struggled pretty significantly. Like there's a lot of substance use in my family.
It's a predisposition for that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew that world a lot. And so she was like, I think this would be a great, program for you. And I was like, okay, I mean, whatever. I'm not doing
I'll try
anything
it.
else. Yeah, why
Why
not?
not?
And so I did. And of course, kind of love it. While working at the wilderness therapy program, that was most definitely what changed and sort of opened my eyes to like experiential therapy,
Mhm.
right? This substance abuse counseling was very much like people came in for an hour and I'm like, okay. And I mean, a lot of my job was just daily life things. Like, are you looking for a job? Are you getting a job? Are you staying sober? Are you taking your methadone when you're supposed to? Like, it was very sort of regimented, as substance use treatment often needs to be. And that was good, but it was also kind of like living in the twilight zone. I would see like 8 people a day just
Ugh.
back to back to back to back, and it was the same
Yeah.
conversations. And so working in wilderness was a very different experience
Okay.
in all of the best ways.
Yeah.
So when you were working in wilderness, you would go out 2 or 3 days and camp and have all these experiences with a small group,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was Chad and I were living in Vegas at the time, and he kinda retrofitted, this Ford Explorer, this, like, old I think he got it at remember, like, Pick and Pull
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
here in I'm pretty
Yep.
sure he towed it from there.
Oh, wow.
He's gonna have to fact check. I can't remember where he got this Explorer, but it was this like beat up, did not. Chad's kind of a gearhead. He loves like car-y stuff. So he kind of retrofitted it for me. We put these huge ass tires on this thing. We took out the back seats, and so it was kind of flat. And I made like a bed. I had all my gear in there. We kind of retrofitted this car, and that's what everybody did
Yeah.
in the woods. Is everybody would kind of have their like field car that we would just leave in Kanab. But we lived in Vegas. I would drive down to Kanab. It was about 4 hours. I would leave at like 3 o'clock in the morning, drive, through the gorge at dark in the winter sometimes. Like it was crazy.
Ugh.
But I would drive down to Kanab and I would spend 2 days in the field with my kids and then with my like students that I was working with. And then I would go home and then I'd work with families and write notes and do like the, logistical office stuff that you have to do. But that was most definitely the time and experience that was like, I want to be a therapist and I want to do more experiential
A little
therapy.
more real,
Yes,
maybe.
because there was no time,
Yeah.
and even everybody that's been to therapy, it's like you have an hour,
Yeah.
right? Or ketamine, we get 2.5 hours. Like we do have to live according to a clock as
Mhm.
humans, just to do things that are necessary and important. I have to pick up my kids from school at a certain time. Like time matters. Time did not matter
Yeah.
out there. I could meet with one of my students for 3 hours
Yeah.
if necessary, if I wanted to, if we were having a good conversation, if we were getting somewhere with something and being able to have that much time. And it wasn't like, we're sitting on a couch, like looking at each other. It was like, we're hiking up over a ridge
Yeah.
or we're carving. Everybody had to bust a fire with their own kit. We didn't have lighters. They couldn't have flint and steel.
Mm.
You had to bust a coal with a fire
Wow.
kit. And so sometimes it was like we weren't even talking about therapy. I was just teaching them how to carve a fireboard,
Mhm.
or we were carving a fire stick, or we were working on them busting a coal. And seeing a lot of these kids were from the East Coast because it was a fairly expensive treatment program.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of these kids like haven't even been outside,
Yeah.
Yeah.
have
Never
never
went camping.
camped
Yeah.
in their life.
Oh.
And even, I mean, I'm sure it's 1,000 times worse now. This was like my oldest daughter's 9. So this was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, which is really crazy to say. That makes me sound really old. Um, but this was, 10 years. I'm sure it's worse now with cell phones and technology and things, but it was pretty bad then
Yeah.
when these kids you would literally experience them going through withdrawals of not having a phone. You would see them do this and be like,
There's nothing there.
there's nothing there. Or like it was pretty significant for these kids to not have technology for, they'd be with us 90 to 120 days. And it was truly transformative for these
Oh,
kids
Yeah.
to be able to know that they have the ability to take care of themselves. It was kind of like, you had to, it was important to learn to bust a coal so that you could have a fire, especially in the summer. Some kids were like, I don't really like, I'm not going to do that because I don't care that much about having a fire in the summer because it was Canab.
Yeah,
It was
Canab's
100
really hot.
degrees. And so you didn't have a fire anyway. But in the winter,
Mhm.
if you wanted to have, a warm meal, like warm oatmeal, because it's, 0 degrees outside,
you got to start it.
yeah, you had to be able to start it. You had to be able to take care of it. You couldn't like borrow from someone else's fire. You had to do it yourself.
Hmm.
And so we had so many cool experiences. We were on, it was kind of like partially BLM land and then it was partially native land. And so we would get a lot of like Native Americans that would come in that would teach us about the land,
Hmm.
about here are the plants, like here are the different woods that you can carve and why you should use these things for different things, right? There was, it's called Rocky Mountain juniper, and it's a juniper tree, but it has this red solid core that is so beautiful. And so they would teach us like how to find, they're kind of rare-ish
Mhm.
in southern Utah. And so you'd have to find them to be able to carve a spoon out of Rocky Mountain juniper because they looked so beautiful when you would carve them.
Huh.
So they would come and teach us all kinds of things. They taught us how to do a traditional sweat lodge. And if the kids wanted to do that, we were able to do that. And we would literally, you had to collect a certain type of lava rock. They were hard-ish to find. And you had to have 150 of them
Oh, wow.
to do a sweat lodge. And then would get big branches of juniper tree. Obviously, there's a lot of juniper in the southern Utah desert. Not Rocky Mountain juniper, but regular juniper. So we would create an enclosure. We would have our 150 lava rocks in the center. They would teach us how to do that,
Wow.
how to notice and pay attention to our body, and how to leave the sweat lodge when we needed to. Um, and then even so the staff, so the therapists, we would be 2 days in the field. The staff would be typically 10 days in the field.
Wow.
They would do 10 days on and 7 days off, where they were just in there immersed.
Mhm.
And that kind of, I had known about like psychedelics before working in the wilderness. I had had some recreational experience with psychedelics in the past, had been good experiences. Didn't have like a ton of experience necessarily, but had tried a few things a few times. But in the wilderness, the staff, we would make these beautiful sweat lodges with the kids, right? And then the kids would move on, right? And we would leave them because we would always say, oh, like the staff, we'll take care of them. Like they would move on to their next hike or their next place.
Yeah.
And then the staff would often come back later and continue to use and enjoy the sweat lodge before we took them down and kind of returned them. And psychedelics were usually a part of that. They were usually a part of those experiences. And so I kind of got introduced a little bit more to psychedelics in that environment, in that space. And then to keep like, a very long story short, I left that job because I got pregnant. And I mean, we were trying to have a family, and so I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I will literally never forget. I was in my, Explorer, and I am pregnant. This is my first pregnancy, so I'm just pregnant.
You're super pregnant.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
All the emotion.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it was the winter, of course, and I had gone to sleep, and it had snowed kind of all day, but nothing too crazy.
Mhm.
But I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I couldn't open my door to get out of my Explorer
No.
because there was snow up past the door handle.
Oh, wow.
I had to, it wasn't automatic. I had to roll my window down, and I'm like digging myself out so I can get out so I can shovel my car out.
Oh,
We were
wow.
pregnant, and I was like, I don't think this is going to work for me anymore.
I think I'm done.
I think I'm okay.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
might not be the best.
Yeah. So I left that job. We had our first daughter, and, we've since had another daughter. And I worked in tech for a little while, just kind of taking a break, not wanting to be really into direct care. I mean, to be totally honest, I was a little bit burnt out at that point. Working in some of these spaces, as much as I loved wilderness, it was absolutely incredible. It was very
Intensive.
intense. Yeah, it was a very emotional. It was really challenging in all of the best kind of ways. But when I had my first daughter, I took a little bit of a break and worked in tech. I had some friends that started a tech startup and kind of helped them get that off the ground and worked there for a couple of years while I finished my out. You know, when you graduate with a master's degree, but then it's like all this other stuff that you have to do before you get licensed. You have to get all these hours and you have to take the boards and you have to just it's this whole process.
So I'm curious.
Yeah.
You actually interned at my work. Was that when you did your sudsi or when you did your master's?
I didn't intern at your work. I was like a night staff.
Oh, you
It's a
actually
frontline.
worked there.
This was
It's a front-
frontline. Yeah, this was when I was at UVU. And we
Okay.
actually lived right down here at the end of 1600, right by I-15. And yeah, I worked like the night shift. I would come in like at 11 p.m. and work until like 6 a.m. or
Doing
something.
graveyards.
Yeah, so it was just like checking on people, making sure they were okay.
That's funny.
So yeah, that was really like 100 years ago. That
Yeah.
was a long time ago. But you know, Cirque was like they were like the
Brand new at that time too. I mean,
brand
they hadn't been
yeah.
around very long.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At least not the studio. The lodge I think was first and had been there for a while, but then the studio was newish. Now it's like gigantic. Now it's just a
Yeah.
huge building.
Huge.
Um, but yeah, so that was a little while before then when I was in college getting my undergrad.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so took a little bit of a break. And when I was coming back to therapy, you know, my daughter had gotten a little bit older and I'm like not, I can't like sit and hang out. Like I said, like I've got it, like I'm jumping out of the airplane and I'm figuring out the parachute. I have to, I love having passion projects. I love having things that I'm excited about. I love being a mother. I love being a wife. And I know for me, I need other passion projects to feel truly, you know, like the meaning of life for sure. And so I went back and started working in therapy again as a marriage and family therapist and worked for an organization that I won't name anymore necessarily because there's a lot of drama around this organization now. But they were the first ketamine clinic in the state of Utah. It was down in he had started in Springville. And if you know who I'm talking about, the person that started it is wonderful. He was such a good mentor. He still is a great leader and educator in this field. It's just this organization has been bought and sold and bought and sold and bought and sold. I worked there for like a year and a half. We rebranded 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Because they had bought and sold and bought and sold and bought
Yeah.
and sold. Like my email address changed 3 times, you know, Emilee at blah, blah, blah.com had changed 3 times. So it was a little bit crazy, but in the beginning, I got to work with some of these leaders in ketamine treatment in the state of Utah and in psychedelics in general. Even they still have it, I believe, where they had this research arm, and they are one of the largest contributors to psychedelic research in the Western United States.
Huh.
They did, while I was there, we did a research study on psilocybin. They were doing a big research study on LSD. And so I got introduced to, I had always known and been familiar with the psychedelic space in a recreational context. And it was always kind of like, these are cool and this is interesting. And like, yeah, I get it, why people love it. But this was my intro into using it in a professional realm, right? After I kind of become fully licensed and now I have this like, you know, DOPL, the Department of Professional Licensing, who like could literally ruin my life. I'm a little more nervous to
Yeah.
do, you know, things that are not legal in the United States. And so I was very cautious of these things. And this organization that I worked for was able to kind of introduce it in a very legal, above board, safe, highly educated and trained providers kind of way. And I loved it. And it was really cool to have some of these experiences. And I learned a lot about ketamine and ketamine treatment. And the way that we did it was I would meet with the client as a therapist, and then they would go and do their ketamine treatment, often like the next day. And then the next day they would come and see me.
Yeah.
And there was, like I said, there's some drama around this organization because they were doctors trying to run a therapy clinic, and doctors treat clients very different, right?
Yeah.
You see your doctor like once every 90 days.
Yeah.
I see my people once a week for an hour
Mm.
at least. Sometimes if you're really struggling, I'm going to see you 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And so we just have more time. And they were trying to run it like doctors
medical
would,
clinic.
like a medical clinic where you see people, as a therapist, you would see people like once every 90 days. And I'm like, this is not going to work for me like this. And they were growing so fast and they were buying and selling and it was all this stuff. And I was like, I love this work. I love ketamine. I love these really, really cool people that I get to work with, that I get to learn from, because I didn't know that much about ketamine at the time.
Yeah.
But I can't work with patients in this way. I can't do an intake with a patient and then not see them again for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like that just does not,
Doesn't make sense.
that doesn't work, especially because people rarely come into therapy of like, I mean, things are pretty good, but I've got some things that I want to work on. People usually come into therapy because of crisis.
Yeah.
Right.
Something recently happened, this big life change, like I am not doing well. That is why I'm coming to therapy. And so to wait months to see people, I was like, this is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So that's when we started. I was just lucky. I'd gone through a couple of friends and acquaintances in the field to start this ketamine clinic. I knew I wanted to start one. And so I met with a few people and ultimately decided on the business partner that I did. And I met Brittany through one of my other friends that the 3 of us were going to start a clinic. And then Brittany is really good at being very honest.
Yes, it is. You get what you get with Brittany.
Uh-huh.
Always.
Like it or not.
Very
Yep.
straightforward.
Yeah. And we had like a meeting, with this friend of mine who was also a therapist. We had this meeting and Brittany was like, I don't like her and I don't want to work with her. And I was like, okay. And, all of these things. And she was like, I just don't get a good feeling. And I was like, I think, yeah, I think
You
I
can
agree.
see it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm same page.
Yeah.
And so we didn't end up doing that. We ended up with, our business partner and started, just her and I, and then things really took off. And I knew working in this other ketamine clinic, I got some kind of brief training with them on how to do ketamine. And then I went further and did this. It was like an 18-month long psychedelic assisted therapy kind of training program. And they're the ones who really kind of pioneered the way that what we're doing now. They do it a little bit differently. They'll do where a medical provider will set you up. We'll do the injection, and then a therapist comes with you like immediately following.
Yeah.
Right. So immediately after your ketamine, which is still great, which is still a huge step up from the way that some of these providers are doing it here in the state of Utah. But we obviously do it very differently because we are with our patients before, during, and after. And yes, sometimes during the medicine, like I'm just writing notes, I'm just hanging out because not a whole lot is happening. But sometimes, probably 40% of the time, people are needing a therapist during the medicine experience.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming. It can feel a little bit scary. It can feel like incredibly blissful to the point of like, how am I going to come back to Earth? Like, does Earth still exist? And so we obviously do it a little bit differently. We do these 2.5-hour sessions where I'm with you before, during, and after.
Talk them through.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of run through that. I mean, I've talked a decent amount about my experience and kind of things, but I want to hear from your side, like how the therapy session, like what it looks like going into it. And then let's talk a little bit about what ketamine is actually doing inside your brain
Yeah.
while it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I look at it is when Scott first came into it, I remember talking with you about it because I was so reserved and didn't really know a lot about it. And I
Right.
was worried for him. Like but the explanation that you kind of gave me was perfect for that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I always tell people, try not to Google or go on Reddit.
yeah.
The ketamine Reddit is horrific. Don't do that because you'll find everything from I did one session and it cured all my life's problems
Mm.
to, I did 30 sessions and it did nothing, but it cost me a lot of money or it made things worse. Or like everybody's experience with ketamine is a little bit unique. So how we do it, right, is first you come in and you get paired with a therapist. You You meet with a therapist. You have to do at least one prep session.
Mhm.
Some people do more than that. They might meet with the therapist 2 or 3 times, but you have to meet with a therapist and go over preparation. This is what it is going to look like. This is what it could feel like. Let's talk about music and what we want to listen to. What are our hopes and intentions? And it's kind of building that like safe rapport therapy relationship.
Yeah.
We do that first. We do that preparation first, and then they'll go meet with Brittany, with our nurse practitioner, to make sure that they physically are safe. She wants to know your medications, your health history, your surgeries, your all those kinds of things to make sure that you're safe. Most people are. There's not a lot of contraindications. Unmanaged high blood pressure is a problem. You'll want to make sure that your blood pressure is managed. If it's managed on medication, then you're fine. We
Well,
want
unless you're me, because every time I go in, mine just raises. Brittany's make fun of me, but that's what
Uh-huh.
it is.
And as long as a lot of folks, when they come in, she takes vitals first.
Mhm.
And if we can do some breathing exercises and we can chill and we can bring it down to a certain threshold, then we're okay. Some people run a little hot with your blood pressure. I have clients that do. They just kind of run a little high.
Yeah, Scott was not allowed to ride his bike 2 sessions at one point because his
Yes.
blood pressure was too high when he got there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So, there's not a ton of contraindications, but with my substance use background, I want to be very, very, very cautious and wary of folks that have history of substance use or addiction, because ketamine is used recreationally. It is abused. It can be addictive if not done in the right context.
Mhm.
And I mean, unfortunately, we do have all these headlines, with the Matthew Perrys of the world and like these experiences where ketamine is and can be addictive and dangerous
Mm.
if not done in the right context.
Correct.
However, when done in the right context, it's so safe.
Yeah.
Ketamine is a medication that is used my 8-year-old when she had to have like one of her little molars cracked.
Mhm.
And she's an anxious baby anyway. And so when we had the option of a little bit of sedation, we took that option because they gave her a little bit of ketamine to just relax her
Mm.
so that they could also give her propofol and remove this tooth and she wouldn't have this like scary experience. She could just have a little nap, have a tooth pulled, and then kind of go throughout her day.
Yeah.
She was 8.
Yeah.
We give babies in the NICU ketamine. We give folks on hospice care ketamine because ketamine, when used by a properly trained medical provider, it's so safe.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful medicine. It is on the World Health's essential medicines because it is so powerful and so meaningful. And it can be, when used in a safe context, it works really well for many use cases. And so we want to be careful and, cautious. And that is another reason why you have to work with a therapist.
Yeah.
You have to be paired with a therapist because medical providers are very used to seeing people every few months.
Mhm.
Therapists are very used to seeing people at least once a week,
Mhm.
if not sometimes more. And so therapists are used to checking in with, how are you doing with this? How is this going? We want to be aware and cautious of any addiction kind of potential that could be coming in. And Brittany is very aware of that as well and very cautious of that because she doesn't want to be a drug dealer, right? She wants to be someone that is using this medicine in a powerful way, not someone that just like gives ketamine to anybody that wants it. We just
Exactly.
don't do that.
Yeah.
So you meet with a therapist and do prep. You meet with Brittany and do a medical intake, and then we schedule the ketamine session. Those are always 2.5 hours long. And your therapist, who you already did the prep session with, is with you the entire time, the entire 2.5 hours. And it is, you come in, you get vitals, we talk about dosing, and then we do different things. We might do a meditation, we might do a grounding exercise. We have some cards that we might pull. We might read from a book. We can do all kinds of different things, whatever wants to happen during that session. And then Brittany administers the medicine. We do the intramuscular shots. We do the injections. We don't do IVs. It feels really medically. And I'm someone that's like, I hate having IVs. I don't want an IV sticking out of my arm while I'm doing therapy. So we do the injection because it's quick and easy. And then we do some integration therapy work, on the end. And so I think we're starting to understand the need for therapy when it comes to working with ketamine. Even there's a big ketamine conference every year, and I'm going to that here in a couple of weeks in Austin. I'm looking at the like conference schedule, and there are more therapists that are presenting on integration and why we need that and how to do it and why it's important. Whereas last year at this conference, not many therapists, not much talk about integration or therapy or things like that.
Yeah.
So I think we are sort of changing. We are recognizing and understanding that, putting someone in a room with a pretty powerful psychedelic dripping in their vein by themselves maybe isn't the best
Yeah.
sort of way, isn't the best sort of treatment.
Well, and when you go in and do yours, when you're sitting with that therapist, you're getting the ketamine, but you're setting these intentions. And sometimes the intentions don't happen,
Mhm.
but you have kind of that path. And I always liked how Lincoln put it is let's set up this path. Let's map this out a little bit. I'm going to here and help guide you, but you get to choose where you go. But at
Mhm.
least you have something going into it. And
Mhm.
I think that's being intentional with everything you guys are doing, adding that onto it. I think it adds so much more to the medicine, so much more to the session, and then afterwards,
The outcome.
the outcome, you went in with those intentions, and then you can start working on what happened during that time. Are my intentions filled,
Mhm.
or were those the incorrect intentions because my mind says no, we need to work on this instead?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think ketamine does such a beautiful job of bringing the unconscious to the conscious,
Yeah.
right? Bringing these things. Sometimes I'm not always aware. I know something's happening. I know something's going on, but I'm like, what the freak is going on? And ketamine does a really good job of slowing things down,
Yeah.
of just slowing it all down, bringing things into view or into focus of what needs our attention right now, what needs our energy, right? And ketamine really works two ways, right? Number one, in my very biased opinion, because I'm a therapist, it's we're doing therapy, right? You're doing therapy before, you're doing therapy during, and you're doing therapy after. So therapy helps, right? Therapy is an important part of the process. And then we also have this medication. It is a prescription medication. It is a drug that you are introducing into your body that is doing things, right? And we know, there's this idea called the serotonin theory of depression, right? And that theory was pretty prominent for the past, I don't know, 50-ish years. Probably fact check me on that, but for a while,
Yeah.
it's been the serotonin theory of the reason that you have depression is because you are low in serotonin. And so we will give you what's called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI, to give your brain more serotonin, right? And serotonin is this neurochemical that is like, everything's okay. It's all good.
Mhm.
Ups and downs for sure, but we'll manage. We'll figure it out, right? Dopamine is like, this is awesome. Everything's amazing. But serotonin is it's okay.
It's the balancer.
It is, yeah, it is what's that word? It's the homeostasis, right? It's all good. Like things are okay. And that was the theory of depression for a very, very, very long time. And now we have a lot of research that has come out that's like, actually, no, that's not actually true. If you look at the research with SSRIs, the research does not support their use for depression. And some people, there's kind of like some people did receive benefit, whether that be placebo or maybe they really did need some serotonin. This is not me like dogging on SSRIs because SSRIs save lives at periods, right? Just like I do not like benzodiazepines, Xanax and things like that. However, those drugs can be completely life saving. And so they're necessary. They're important survival tools. They're just not tools that are meant to be long term. But so the theory with serotonin and depression has sort of come out and been like, we actually don't have research that supports this, that people actually are not serotonin deficient. And that is why, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I went on an SSRI and I lost my mother freaking mind, like I was suicidal. I didn't know what an emotion was. I got like more depressed. I gained weight. I like did not care about anything. You are one of the many millions of of people who we assumed were serotonin deficient, and that's why you were depressed when you actually were not serotonin deficient.
Yeah.
So your body was like, I don't know what the freak to do with all of this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be so homeostasis. I'm going to be so just,
Be numb.
yeah, that I don't feel anything, that literally nothing matters
Yeah.
anymore. And then when literally nothing matters anymore is when we get that suicidal ideation that comes up. And so, fortunately, we have come really far in research, in medications, in how these things can be supportive for people. And so, two important things, right? Number one is if you are considering going on a medication like an SSRI, I really would encourage you to do, there's testing now called GeneSight.
Mhm.
That is really fantastic. It's a simple blood draw. It is looking at your genetic makeup and it is determining if you would be a good candidate. I don't know the total science behind it because I am not a scientist,
Yeah.
but it is something, it's a simple blood test. They can look at your genetic makeup and they can say, you would be a good candidate for an SSRI, and we could try these different ones. Or they can look at it and say, I get why you freaked out on that SSRI. You're not a good candidate for that. We should try some of these other things, or let's look at other areas of what may be causing your depression. So GeneSight is something that I highly recommend. We, of course, maybe someday I'll offer GeneSight. I talk about it enough that maybe I should offer it. I don't right now. Most of your like PCPs can order it. It's pretty easy. But ketamine works very differently on the brain, right? It is not giving your brain serotonin. It instead is giving your brain a flood of the neurochemical called glutamate. And glutamate is this chemical in our brain that is responsible for us being adaptive, us being flexible. It's the neuroplastic chemical, right? Because we know that, and Goldolan is this really cool researcher that researches psychedelics. She actually uses octopuses. It's really fascinating.
wow.
She's such a cool lady. But she does a lot of research with this, and she did research with a bunch of psychedelics. She looked at ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, and ibogaine.
Hmm.
And she was specifically looking at reopening what we call these critical learning windows,
Yeah.
right? So when we're young, I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old right now. Their critical learning windows are wide freaking open, right? It's why my 8-year-old can take one piano lesson and sit down and play any freaking song she wants on the piano. She can remember them. It is not that challenging for her to memorize. She can sit down and remember it and do it. And I, who have taken piano lessons for a majority of my freaking life, I cannot. I practice for hours and I'm like, I still don't remember and I forget. And I'm like, I got to look this up again because as we age and as we grow up and as we go through different experiences, these critical windows start to close, right? As children, our brains are like wet sponges that will just absorb. And as we age, as one does, these sponges start to kind of dry out a little bit. And so what psychedelics do and why psychedelics are so talked about and so exciting for so many providers is because the mechanism of psychedelics kind of re-wets your sponge and it reopens these critical periods. And this study that Goldolan did, she found that with ketamine, this critical period is reopened for about 48-ish hours for most people. Sometimes that's a little longer, sometimes that maybe is a little bit shorter, but it reopens these windows so we can look at things from a new perspective. That glutamate is making our brain more adaptive, so we can look at things differently than we would, in our kind of waking conscious, brain.
That makes perfect sense too, because every time Scott would go and do his treatment, about 2 to 3 days later, he'd always have these aha moments.
Mhm.
We
Where-
call my ketamine dump sessions,
Yeah.
what I would call to my brain.
Yeah.
And just everything would just flood in. All of these experiences, the intention from everything would come in and say, okay, this dot connects here, here, here. Now you have a circle because now you can see the entire picture.
Mhm.
And we've talked about some of those, and that makes more sense because I didn't know quite the time frame why that was doing it.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna know something really interesting?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily always share this with people because all of these other ones are illegal, and I don't recommend doing them, obviously, and blah, blah, blah. But in this study, it's a really well-documented study, so ketamine was about 48 hours, and this would make sense, right? Because the acute effects of ketamine last for most people between 40 minutes to an hour.
Mhm.
Some people, men, especially men with high muscle mass, metabolize it pretty quickly, whereas women, we metabolize it slower, and so it's 40 minutes to an hour is the acute effect of the medicine,
Mhm.
right? And so that critical learning window opens for about 48 hours. With things like psilocybin and MDMA,
Mhm.
the acute effects of the medicine are about 4 to 6 hours for most people. It's a much longer experience.
Mhm.
And they found that these learning windows were open for about 3 to 5 days.
Wow.
Really?
They were
Wow.
open 3 to 5 days. And then LSD, the acute effects of LSD are about, 24, no, not 24, sorry, 12 hours for LSD. And those critical periods are open for about a week to 2 weeks. And then if you've heard anybody, I think Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss and like all those guys are talking about psychedelics all the time because they're all really excited about it. And they've talked about ibogaine a little bit. Ibogaine is one that's not super well known.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard of that one.
Ibogaine is really
Honey, isn't it?
it's not honey, it is a plant.
Mhm.
It's similar, oops, sorry. It's similar in nature to ayahuasca,
Okay.
but it is longer acting. The acute effects of ibogaine are about 48
Whoa.
hours. It is a long journey. It is
Yeah.
a long, 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 long experience. And they stopped measuring how long the acute or how long the critical learning windows were open after 3 to 4 weeks
Huh.
because the study ran out of money.
Yeah.
And they were like, we can't.
So it almost could have gone years.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, we won't know. And I mean, I'm hopefully,
Months.
Gold Dolan will get more money. She'll do more research, and because we want to prove the safety and the efficacy of some of these drugs, right? And I don't think in our clinic we would ever offer something like ibogaine for all kinds of reasons. It's the same way I would not offer like ayahuasca either. I think these are like very indigenous experiences, and they are meant to be done in a very specific way.
Mhm.
And I'm like a white girl from Utah. Like, I'm not going to give you ayahuasca. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
not. I just am not. The cultural appropriation that comes with
Yeah.
that, it just would never happen. But things like MDMA, I am really excited about as a marriage and family therapist because if we could legally do this in a really safe way, there is some really cool research with MDMA. We've done a ton of research with veterans, with couples.
Mm.
And so I am excited about that. And I hope that in my lifetime we're able to do that. I don't know if that'll ever happen necessarily, but crazy things are happening.
Yeah.
Crazy things are
The
happening.
food pyramid, we flipped it upside down. Like things are happening in this world. So maybe someday we'll be able to use these in a legal context. And I would be really excited about
Yeah.
that.
For our listeners, who would you say clinically, therapeutic wise, are usually the best candidates for ketamine?
That is a really good question. I'm really glad you asked. People that are the best candidates are people that have tried a lot of other stuff first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, and just going off from me, it was kind of that endpoint. I had tried X, Y, and Z, different therapies, groups, things, and nothing just seemed to really stick. So it kind of was that last help me
Mm-hmm.
out call. And so, yeah, don't jump into this of, oh, I'm just going to go do this and I'll be fixed.
Right.
You need to work on yourself because if you don't do regular talk therapy,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to understand the process and it's not going to benefit you as much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, the FDA approved what's called Spravato. That's like the FDA approved version of ketamine. We don't do it because there's too many hoops and it takes too long and blah, blah. And we can just do ketamine in a safe, legal way and it's totally fine. But the FDA originally approved Spravato for treatment resistant depression.
Hmm.
They used to actually, prior to 2025, I want to say, you had to show 2 failed SSRIs before your insurance would cover Spravato
Oh,
because they wanted to make sure, and they don't do that anymore now, it is approved as a monotherapy, but they wanted to ensure they found in their research that people with treatment-resistant depression, like, I have tried talk therapy, I have tried some medications,
mhm.
I have tried yoga and meditation and breath work, and, like, I'm trying the things, and I am still very stuck.
Yeah.
Those are the people who ketamine works really well for, right? And I think that's why I'm excited to offer more than ketamine at Koru Wellness. We've always offered talk therapy. I've always done therapy.
Mhm.
But if someone comes in to see me and they're like, "Yeah, I've never done therapy before, but I want to try ketamine," I'm not necessarily going to talk them out of it, but I'm like, what if you're one of the people that we can do some talk therapy and you just like feel better?
Yeah.
You don't have to do ketamine.
Mhm.
Or let's help me get to know you. Let me understand where you're coming from. And then, if I'm seeing that you've recently been through some pretty acutely traumatizing things, yeah, maybe let's
Yeah.
go ahead and do some ketamine. I think that would be a good thing.
Mhm.
But if you're someone that's coming into me and you're like, I don't know why I'm depressed. Like, I do have a good relationship. I've got a good job. Like, and I get these points of where, like, I just don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to run to ketamine as my first line of response for those types of folks. I want to look at a lot of other things
Yeah.
first and see if you are, a candidate, because there are risks associated with ketamine. They're few and far between, and there's not a ton of side effects, but ketamine is a medicine.
Mhm.
And like I said, with, other drugs like Xanax and with SSRIs and things, they are survival tools, right? That sometimes are the thing that keeps us alive. And that is meaningful and valuable and important, but I don't want you to be on them for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's just like with ketamine. We're not going to do ketamine once a week for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
You will start to see diminishing returns. We know that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with SSRIs. It's the same thing. It's even the same thing with like Adderall. Like you get to a point of diminishing returns, right? Where it's not as effective and it doesn't actually help. And then we got to go up in dose or we got to add this other medicine or we got to do all these things.
Yeah.
And so the hope always is to help support people return to being their best advocate, right? Nobody knows what it's like to live in my body like I know what it's like to live in my body. And so we're so used to getting sort of gaslit by the medical community, sometimes by therapists, like we are not perfect humans, by family, by friends. Like we're so used to getting gaslit that we forget how to trust our own intuition, how to trust ourselves, how to trust and know that my body is its best healer.
Yeah.
I am my best healer. And if I can get to the point where I trust that, then things can really start to change. And so always that's my goal in therapy is how to, like I said in the beginning, right? I'm not like, well, you should do this or you should do that, or like, these are the things you should do to fix your life because I don't know. I don't know what it's like to live in your body. What if you're waking up every single day at 2 a.m. And sometimes this happens in therapy sometimes, which if you're meeting with a therapist, like you should just tell them everything up front. Sometimes I'll meet with people. I had a client last week. I've been meeting with this person for like 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And I cannot remember how this came up in conversation, but this person was like, yeah, for the last, I don't know, maybe year, I have woken up at 2 a.m. every single night. I wake up and it usually takes me about an hour to an hour and a half to get back to sleep, if I get back to sleep at all. And I'm like, well, no wonder you're exhausted.
Yeah.
No wonder you don't feel well.
You're
Like, and
sleepy.
we know hormonally that around 2 a.m. is when your melatonin stops producing. And the melatonin starts to kind of metabolize through your body. And so if you're waking up at 2 a.m., we know, okay, there's something else going on because the moment that melatonin is not being produced anymore, your body's like, oh, I got to be awake. Like, I got to do this thing. And there's all kinds of stuff that we can do to help support that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it took 6 months for you to tell me about
Yeah.
this. Like, just, yeah, being open because all of these things impact our mental health. What we're eating, how much we're moving, how well we're sleeping, all of these things really impact our mental health. So,
Absolutely.
So I have a question.
yeah.
I know you've mentioned in the past and all these new things, you've expanded a lot of the resources and a lot of things you offer at Koru.
Mhm.
But I know you talked about possibly doing a wilderness group ketamine session at one point. Is that still something on the table?
Ah, man, I wish, right? I am doing a women's group. I usually do I mean, it depends. I usually do about 2, sometimes 3 group ketamine experiences per year,
Mhm.
right? We did a couple last year. I'm doing a women's group that starts at the end of February, February 27th. It's all women. We did this one of all women last fall. It was so cool. I loved it so much that I was like, I want to do another all women one.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do all men ones, and they don't really take off. I think men are like, I don't want to get in a room and do drugs with other dudes. Like they don't.
They
They
don't want to get
never.
vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They don't take off as well. And so women are easier. I work with a lot of women and things. We did early on before I had Koru, I had a company that basically all we did was retreats. It was called Via Vitae. It means the journey of life in Latin. And all I did was retreats. Because that was kind of another, I've had like I'm really old now, so I've done a lot of things in my life. But I did after the wilderness therapy program when I was working in tech, I wanted to kind of keep my toes in therapy. I didn't want to completely leave therapy. And so for about a year, I worked for a company that did retreats that would do like 2.5 day retreats for couples and families, and we would do 4 day retreats for individuals. So I got a lot of really cool experience running retreats. And so I started my own company and we did some retreats. I did some couples and some families. We did 2 ketamine retreats and they were really awesome.
Mm.
They were really transformative. They were really cool. I would love to do them in the future again. I just don't have the time right now necessarily.
Too much on the plate.
Yeah, but I do hope to offer that. There is some interesting, like ethical things, right, to be considered. I don't ever want to be perceived. There are plenty of companies. I actually just read a study last night and I was griping to Chad about it because they did this meta analysis where they looked at there's something like 43 programs nationwide that are advertising doing psychedelic retreats in some sort of fashion, right? Keeping in mind that so of the 43, it was something like 25. I don't know. I'll like, post this study on my Instagram so you can actually read the actual results because I'm probably butchering the numbers a little bit. But it was more than half of
Mhm.
these companies that are advertising on the internet that they're doing psychedelic retreats are in the United States.
Wow.
And then something like, I think it was like, so there's 43 total, and then it was like 25 ish are in the United States. And then it was like 20 are in the Western United States, AKA Utah, Nevada, California, right?
Yeah.
Because they did have like the South. I would consider Texas the South. But of these, so they're offering these psychedelic retreats that keep in mind are illegal
Yeah.
in the United States. And so of these programs, very few of them, something like 10%, actually have a fully licensed professional,
Yeah.
a medical person like a
Mm.
doctor or a nurse or a therapist. And so when it comes to doing these retreats, even though ketamine is very legal, there is a lot of negative bias towards ketamine in the media, towards psychedelics in general. And so, doing another ketamine retreat, I would love to, and I want to, and I do see that happening in the future. I just want to be very mindful, very cautious of what that looks like. Because I have a lot of people that are up my butt already about stuff. And I just don't want more people to be looking at me at stuff to make sure that, I do have to be abundantly cautious with how we document ketamine, even though it's a legal drug, it's prescribed. There are still folks that look at it as like you're just giving people drugs to get high, which just baffles me, right? Like just completely blows my mind because we're giving people the smallest dose. It's administered by a medical professional. We're tracking your vitals. I really feel like we go above and beyond to monitor safety and efficacy and all of these things. And I still have people that are like, yeah, you're just like giving people drugs. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
okay. You're entitled to your opinion,
Yeah.
even if it's wrong.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, this question's been on my mind for a while, and we've never had the opportunity to ask you. So you started doing couples ketamine
Mhm.
sessions,
Yes.
which I think is great because there's definitely some trauma that could happen within a marriage or
Mhm.
within something where you can do it
Barriers.
and some barriers and you can work together. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Right.
With us, we're one of those couples where you know Hillary's not a great candidate for it because of some of her other medication, and it's something that she really doesn't need. It's worked great for me. So my question I've always thought about is, what about doing a couples therapy session where one's doing the ketamine,
Yeah.
the other's not, so then you can still have that conversation in that realm? Is that something you guys have done? You've looked at doing? What's that look like?
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple of different ways that we can do couples ketamine, right? And even since we were on the topic of like, doing retreats and making sure I'm doing things legally and ethically, we had, we have to have professional liability insurance in case somebody sues me down the road.
Yeah.
And they dropped us this year because on our website we advertise that we do couples ketamine, and they're like, that's not FDA approved. And I'm like, well, ketamine, the way that we use it is off label. It's not FDA approved. We're not doing Spravato. And they're like, we
Right.
don't care. If you stop doing couples therapy or couples ketamine, then we'll insure you. I'm like, nah, screw you guys. So we found a different insurance provider, and it's fine. But even like the stigma associated with doing it this way, right? Even doing like oxytocin induced couples therapy, right? Oxytocin is a really powerful neurochemical that is like that, like love and connection and bonding chemical.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is very above board, legally prescribed, that we can use in couples therapy. And people are like, wow, like it just, anyway, people just have like a bad opinion about it, right?
Yeah.
But with couples therapy, we can do it a few different ways. Couples therapy is a little bit different than when we do private ketamine, because typically private ketamine, if you meet with me once and you want to dive into ketamine, I'm like, yeah, most of the time, sweet, let's do that. Sometimes I'll have people meet with me a couple of times, especially if they have a really complex trauma history. You might need to meet with me more than once. With couples, almost always we're doing 2 to 3 prep sessions, because now I have 2 people in the room. If I have 2 people with complex trauma histories,
Mm-hmm.
it just takes more preparation work, right? And so we typically do 2 to 3 prep sessions. Each of you individually have to meet with the medical provider because you have different medications and health histories and things. And then we can go ahead and schedule the couple sessions, and we can do a few different things. We can do psychedelic couples, right? Where both of you are doing high dose ketamine. And then we can do it both of you at the same time, or we can alternate where maybe you're doing a high dose ketamine session and you're there as the supportive person before, during, and after. And then they can switch. Maybe they never switch. Like if you're like, I would never want to do ketamine, you don't have to necessarily switch. But they can be really powerful experiences. I find what I lean towards and what I like a little bit more is what we call psycholytic ketamine. It's much lower dose ketamine. And we can do it where both parties are doing lower dose ketamine, or same thing, one versus the other, and kind of alternating where one of you, sometimes with ketamine or with couples sessions, usually like you're always his ride, so if you're
Yeah.
both doing it, it's a little complicated. Like,
Yeah.
what
You
friend
gotta
do I
find
have,
another.
or a family member? It
Yeah.
has to be over 18, so it can't be your teenager. So it's a little complicated to get a ride sometimes. So it can be nice to kind of do that alternating.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the lower dose psycholytic sessions. And what that looks like is we're not doing like noise canceling headphones, right? We'll have music playing on the speakers just to still have sort of that impact of sound and how that sort of plays things out a little bit. We typically are doing eye shades because even at low doses, even at like 20, 30 milligrams, ketamine is going to mess with your vision.
Yeah.
You're going to have double vision. It's going to blur things. It's not fun and cool like MDMA and psilocybin, where like, your senses sync together,
Uh-huh.
or where you hallucinate really visual experiences. Ketamine is not like that. And that's why we recommend the eye shades, is because it can be a little bit disorienting if you don't have your eye shades on. So we would still set it up in that way if you're both in a moon pod next to each other. We're still having eye shades. And we're, in those prep sessions, we're talking about the intentions and what we hope to accomplish. And honestly, that low dose is really powerful for couples because it does sometimes give us like that distance from things. It's not quite as overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes, obviously, in couples, I work a lot with infidelity, with just kind of experiencing trauma together, and things like that. And sometimes it can be really dysregulating to talk about infidelity in a couple session
Mhm.
because one or both partners can get really activated, can get really in that fight or flight state.
Mhm.
And we know that, right? When your body goes into fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that is responsible for like being rational
Mhm.
and not screaming and not freaking out, is literally not even online. Daniel Siegel has a really great like 7-minute YouTube video where he talks about the hand model of the brain. And he talks about that of literally your prefrontal cortex goes online. There's been some couples researchers too, where in therapy, they will have you put on a pulse oximeter and you track your heart rate. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden, Hillary, your heart rate's at 100 beats per minute. Like,
Yeah.
how you feeling, right? It's having that conscious awareness into what our body is doing. And because ketamine, even in those low doses, you don't even need to go high. You can do a really low dose. It can just calm that
Yeah.
a little bit. So now we can maybe talk about the infidelity or the dishonesty or the addiction or whatever the thing might be. And we both don't get so dysregulated and triggered
Yeah.
that we literally can't even talk about it because we're both just so freaking, escalated about it so quickly.
It brings the rationality back into it.
Totally. Yeah. And
Like,
now we can connect and talk about it and make some real progress, some real headway with them.
It's
I like it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds very intriguing. I mean, and there's definitely people that, as you're saying that, I can think of that would really benefit in their relationship from something like that. And in my mind, I'm just going, okay, well, some of these people have a couple drinks and they're able to have better conversations. But usually with something like alcohol, it does bring up a little bit higher level of intensity, in those conversations. So that might be a really good option for some of these people that have some very hard things they need to talk about
Right.
in a nice, safe, controlled space.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, even, with alcohol, yeah, 1 to 2 drinks. Alcohol is a depressant,
Mhm.
right? So it depresses that nervous system a little bit, that central nervous
Yep.
system. It calms things down. Unfortunately, I mean, for some people, some of us, right, we can't just have two. Like we're having 15,
Yeah.
and then now we're escalating. Now things are way worse than they were when we started. But yeah, it's that ability to just sort of like calm, to just sort of recenter,
Yeah.
to reground into our body of like, okay, what do I actually want to say? What actually is important here? And how can I communicate that to my person in the best
Yeah.
way?
Yeah.
I like it.
I love it.
Well, I mean, really, Emily, I have so many more things and I know you know that we could talk about this for an entire day
Yeah.
because it has literally changed my life. It has changed our life together.
Yeah.
You have helped so many other people with you and the staff at Koru. So we want to say thank you. And I really just want to say if anybody has any more, if this has intrigued you, reach out to Emily and her staff, set up a time just to meet with them.
Mhm.
You don't even have to say it's a therapy session. It can be an interview to learn more about it, right?
Yeah, and we do free consultations.
Yeah.
Our nurse practitioner will do a consultation if you're like, I think I want some labs run, or like, is this normal? I'm feeling this way. Yeah, or for therapy, you can do a free consultation with any of our therapists, right? I think that's important to make sure that the fit is a good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've done therapy, you've maybe met with a therapist, you spent a whole hour, and in 10 minutes, you're like, I don't think this person's for me.
Yeah.
So doing a free consultation, a quick like, hey, tell me about your approach. Like, what do you think? Like, here's what I'm going through. Am I a good fit for you? Because not everybody's a good fit for me,
Yeah.
right? If you're someone that is neurodivergent, or is on the spectrum, or even like pretty significant ADHD, I'm like, I'm not going to be your best person. I have a therapist who has specialized training in neurodivergence, and she's going to be way better for you than me. So doing those consultations always, those are always
Huge.
free.
Yeah.
Uh,
Awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I just, again, seek out what you need.
Mm.
Start interviewing therapists, find the type of therapy that can help you because Emily said it multiple times. We say it all the time on this show. Not every style of therapy works for everybody.
Yep.
Mhm.
Everybody is different. Emily says we are the only ones that live in our body. We're the only ones that would know what we need, but sometimes we need to find the right guide to figure
Mhm.
out what that is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I know you've listened to some episodes and you did help me with my story when we first started. So as we finish up, we always ask the guest if they have any questions. I know you know a lot about us. I mean, we have both been in therapy with you and we've known you almost 2 years.
Wow, that's
I
crazy.
know.
Yeah.
It's
But
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's
You're the interviewer now.
Yeah.
yeah,
Or the
what's going on in your head?
interviewee.
You have any questions for us that
I mean, a million, but right, it is the new year, right? And I am not like a New Year's resolution or like, new me, new year, new me kind of person necessarily. But it is sort of, November and December are often like crazy and it's holidays and it's family time. And so January is sort of that natural, like, okay, it's a new year. Like, what do I want to do this year? What am I most excited about? What are you most excited about for this year? What is that one thing that you're like, oh, this just lights me up? I cannot wait to dive into this
wow.
more.
I don't know if I can pick just
I'd
one
say,
this year.
can you
That's a
pick just
good
one?
problem.
I'm going to take it two ways. I'm going to say something very personal that I'm excited about, but then I'll also say something that we're working on for the business.
Yeah.
Because I can't pick which one I like better.
Yeah, a personal and a professional. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
meaningful.
So for me, I'm super excited about the next, what is it, 90 days, really? I think 90 days.
Yeah, about that.
For whatever reason, it just happens. The universe lines the right way.
Mhm.
I asked Hillary to marry me on April 14th,
Mhm.
which was our first date
Oh, like a year
originally.
later?
A year
Oh, okay. I'm
later.
like,
A year.
Yeah.
on your first date? Oh,
No,
I was,
no,
So,
on
so,
I was like, I have not heard this
so,
story.
so a year later, that's the day that we got engaged.
Uh-huh.
Well, every year we go to a concert literally during that week. A lot of the time it's on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Now it has become we go to Colorado at Red Rocks
Yeah.
every year.
Mhm.
But over the next 90 days, we've got a couple artists coming up that we haven't seen. Be super excited about. So we have 3 concerts between now and April, that time. I'm
Mhm.
so excited. I'm super excited to go spend. I mean, this time we're actually spending an entire week in Colorado to do some stuff because now she has the flexibility to do it.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited about those. I love music and it is part of my healing.
Mhm.
Something that we've always connected over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the next 90 days is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Professionally, with everything going on, I think I am most excited to see where the new recovery friendly workplace of Utah Foundation goes, that we were so graciously introduced and became founding members with the group that we put it together with. It is, I feel it is going to change the workplace here in Utah.
Mm.
It's not going to be immediate. It's going to take some time, but it has had such good results across other states across the US that I know Utah's going to grab onto this and it is going to make a huge difference. And we got involved because it literally mirrored the problem that I went through.
Mm.
And I am so excited that we have finally found the solution and we can provide it to people.
Yeah.
Nice.
And even just the people we've talked to recently about it, we get such great reception over it.
Mm.
Like people are interested in this. People
Mhm.
see the need for this.
Nice.
And everybody I've talked to said, "Oh, this is amazing." Like,
Why wasn't this around 10
like,
years?
yeah.
Mm. Nice.
So
Yeah.
that's me.
That's awesome.
That's you? Okay. Well, I'll kind of sprout off your same thing and do a professional and a personal. So,
Mhm.
personally, and Emily, we've talked about this in a lot of our therapy sessions. So, I've started a whole entire new health journey.
Oh, nice.
I did start, I haven't actually admitted this, but I did start on a GLP-1
Mm.
back in October. But then I recently just started working with a trainer
Nice.
as well, and
The Vern burn.
the burn, yeah. He definitely put the burn in yesterday. I'm feeling it today for sure. But yeah, just getting back to a good space physically, which also always tends to help me mentally as well.
Yeah,
And so I'm just really excited for that, getting back into the good habits.
right.
When I met Scott, I was probably in the best physical shape I'd ever been.
Mm,
Worked out all the time, but I also had the time for that.
right.
So,
You didn't
know,
have 5 kids.
yeah, I was single. I would go to the gym after work every day. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities, so life happens and, throws a whole bunch of things in the mix. So,
Right.
um,
I want to stop just for 1 second
yeah,
because you're like, I haven't admitted this publicly
I
yet,
haven't.
right?
Mhm.
Because GLP-1s are similar to ketamine
They
a
are.
little bit, where people are like, ugh, like there's so much negative stigma and bias around someone getting on a GLP-1, which, by the way, is literally a peptide that your body naturally produces.
Yeah.
Like, this is not some like whatever. This is
Mhm.
something that your body naturally produces. And it is just like ketamine in that way of like, are you going to be on it forever and ever? No,
No,
hopefully not.
no.
It is this like springboard
Mhm,
into changing your life
mhm,
for the better. If ketamine is the thing that keeps you from being suicidal, and we can get you to a place where you have motivation to go to therapy, to read the book, to join I Love You Bro, to do these things, then freaking sweet. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it without shame.
mhm.
GLP-1s are the same way,
Yeah,
right? If
yeah.
you're in a place where you're like, I feel like absolute garbage,
Mhm,
I don't have the motivation to work out or eat right, or it can be really overwhelming with
yeah.
the amount of information out there that's like all of these things. So, all of that to say, don't do, no, we are not having shame about
No,
being on a GLP-1. Like,
no.
that is something that can support you and your body and help kind of rewire your brain
Mhm.
about how we look at food and nutrition and diet and all of these things. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I think they're
It
so
is temporary.
wonderful.
It's not a you're
It's
not on it forever. It is just
no.
like ketamine. You use it until you don't
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
Well, and
Mhm.
I talked with you
Yeah.
about this. This was not just a quick
Right.
like spring decision that I made.
Absolutely.
I sat on that decision for a
Yeah.
long
It's
time.
Yep.
been about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
was not something that, I tried multiple things
Right.
before I went on that.
Yep.
And that was just the conclusion that I came to. And I did the research. I
Right.
did a lot of prep work before that, before I actually fully went into that decision.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, it was
We're
not.
leaving shame about GLP-1s in 2025.
Yeah, there's,
2026 us is like
it's
cool.
just
Yeah.
it's an extra tool to
Absolutely.
use, and it's worked really well for me.
Nice.
So
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so personally, that's where I'm at.
Very cool.
Professionally, I'm looking forward to moving to part-time in my full-time job, and I'm also looking forward to having a little extra time to work on our business, on our
Mhm.
passions,
Right.
and the things that we love and want to see grow.
Right.
So that is something that I'm absolutely looking forward to this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's been something that's been huge too, is like your work and how you're feeling about your work and wanting to have this thing, that you're passionate about, that you're excited about.
Yeah,
And this is what you're passionate and excited
and
about.
we're here.
That's so cool.
I just think you were jealous. You watch me operating 3 different businesses over here and doing things all day. You just like, "I wanna do that. That looks like so much fun."
Yeah, it definitely is. So,
So, I'm excited. It's gonna be and I'm really that's one thing I'm super excited is to be spending more time with you
mhm.
when we get to go do some of these amazing things for other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Mhm.
it's
I
gonna be
like
awesome.
the idea of giving back even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
mm,
Everybody, I can't say it enough. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for sitting here with us, listening to Emilee and her story, why she does what she does, and all the amazing things that Koru Wellness can offer you, your loved ones, your coworkers, everybody around you. All of her information will be in the podcast description. But You can look her up on koruwell.com, correct?
Mhm.
Is that
Yes.
the new website?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Koruwell.com.
Brand new. I'm really proud
Yeah.
of it.
You can set up a consultation right there on the website. You can call their numbers on there,
Mhm.
get it all set up, meet with Emilee and her team. I guarantee you won't regret it because they have something that they can offer that will help you.
Mm.
So, with that, everybody, again, our challenge this year is your triple R challenge. We've thrown it out every one of these episodes of the first of the year. Find something, recognize what it is, release it, and replace it with something positive in your life. And as you're doing that, don't ever forget that you're.
A big deal.
Mm.
Thanks, everybody.
Love that.